Hey everyone, today we're going to take a look at the Marvel Legends Fantastic Four retro carded, fully clear Invisible Woman action figure. This figure comes in a white shipper box to protect the card. On the shipper box, there's artwork done in red and black inks. The box is mostly in a plain white. So let's go ahead and get this figure out of the shipper box. Once again, the figure is on a really eye-catching Fantastic Four retro card. Great colors and artwork over here for the logo. This time the artwork of the Invisible Woman down the front of the plastic bubble is completely clear and done in white inks. Moving down to the back of the card, that same artwork of the Invisible Woman. Some instructions over here to swap her hands and use that invisible shield. Description of the character plus the other figures in the Fantastic Four retro wave. A quick comparison with the card for the regular Invisible Woman in the Fantastic Four retro wave. The only difference is the artwork of the Invisible Woman. And moving back to the front of the card, she's packaged exactly the same way as the regular Invisible Woman. You can see the figure over here with two interchangeable fists as well as her clear invisible shield. So let's go ahead and get her open. I simply slice the plastic bubble off the card back with a hobby knife so that I can easily keep and store the card back. First up, we're taking a look at her invisible shield. There's a smooth rounded sculpt down the front, as well as kind of swirly edges, as well as more swirls on the back where this fits onto her splayed hands. The sculpt of the invisible shield is exactly the same as the one that we got from the regular Invisible Woman. There's a slight difference in color tone. The previous one appears a little more yellow, while the newer one looks a little more blue. The shield is cast to be fitted onto her right splayed hand, and of course, she can hold it just fine. And of course, if you wanted to, you could also squeeze that shield onto her left hand. And now with shields from two separate figures, we can have her dual wielding two shields. And next up, she also comes with two fists, cast in a clear plastic. These fists are a standard sculpt for female Marvel Legends. These fists are articulated inwards as well as outwards. And of course, those fists pop on just fine onto her arms. In terms of sculpt, of course, she's entirely the same sculpt as the previous regular Invisible Woman. But of course, because she has zero paint applications and her body is made up of the standard slim female Marvel Legends body with no additional distinct features, there's really nothing distinct about her sculpt that would set her apart from other female Marvel Legends bodies, just like on Spider-Woman over here. So that to me feels a little disappointing. With Hasbro saving costs on zero paint applications, they could have at least given her a uniquely sculpted upper torso so we could at least see a Fantastic Four logo sculpted on, even if it's not painted. So that to me would actually set the figure apart from other standard female Marvel Legends. And also because of the different consistencies of the types of plastics used all over her body, there are also subtle differences in the shades of that transparent plastic. For example, her head is a different sort of tone compared to her torso, and the same goes to her upper thighs as well, looking a little different from her hip joints as well as her lower legs. Zooming into the head sculpts, in a strange way, not actually having paint makes that head sculpt look more bearable compared to the terrible work done on the original Invisible Woman head sculpt. So I'm actually not opposed to having this clear head sculpt over here. I think it still looks decent without any paint and definitely carries off the Invisible Woman look. And besides the different consistencies of the plastic material used on her body, there's one more thing about her torso that bugs me. Because the plastic used all over is clear, you can see some internal molding detail that's obviously not intended. There's a reflected number 2 over here on her abdomen area, and that's quite distracting. We're already missing a Fantastic Four logo sculpt over here on her chest, and this visible reflected number 2 over here just makes everything kind of ironic. Moving on to the rest of the body, it's just a smooth, slender sculpt. The clear plastic actually lets you take a look at the inner workings of all the joints, so in some way it gives you a better appreciation of an action figure, but that actually suspends belief that this is an actual invisible character from the comics. And over here with a closer look at her legs, you can definitely notice the difference in clarity and color tone between her thighs and her calves. And once again, there's also another difference, which in turn also looks different compared to her feet. So there's definitely a distraction when you get up close with the figure and start looking at the different tones of her body parts. Her articulation is Marvel Legends standard, ball hinge at her neck joint so you can turn her head. There's also some sideways tilt. She can look down that far, but not much upwards because of the hindrance of her hair sculpt. Swivel hinge at the shoulders that go all the way around as well as coming out that far. Swivel hinge also at her elbows, so that gets you just about 90-degree bend, and you can swing her arm around as well. Another swivel hinge on her wrist that lets you spin her hands 360 and they articulate in as well as out. There's a mid-torso ball joint, so you can spin her sideways, as well as some sideways tilt left and right. And there's also kind of limited forward ab crunch as well as backward bend. She's got ball jointed hips that only go out that far. The range is not great, and those ball joints also feel a little gummy. And that has been a feature of some recent Marvel Legends releases. She's also able to go forward and backward that far. There's an upper thigh swivel, so you can swing her leg outwards as well as inwards. And only now I realize the only hit of paint on her is that batch number in black over here on the back of her left thigh. There's a double hinge joint at the knees for good range. Ankle tilt upwards as well as downwards. And finally ankle pivot outwards as well as inwards. So after looking at the sculpt and the articulation of this figure, you're probably wondering to yourself, why would you grab an action figure that has no paint and is completely the same sculpt as the previously released regular Invisible Woman? This release over here probably just feels like a lazy attempt from Hasbro and obviously an easy money grab. However, I'd like to shift your frame of thought just a little bit by taking this figure as a sort of companion piece or accessory pack for the regular Invisible Woman. And this all starts to make more sense once you pop on those invisible pieces onto the regular Invisible Woman. Over here you can have her using her powers, turning her hands as well as her head invisible. You can also now arm her with 2 invisible shields and really pushing her powers to the limit. But to take the playability of this figure to the next level, I will recommend that you make some simple modifications to the figure. You will see the link appear over here. These modifications would be to remove just a little bit of plastic material from the shoulder joints to make the arms interchangeable, as well as a bit of removal of material from the torso in order to get more forward ab crunch out of it. And after you've modified those shoulders, you can now easily remove her arms from that socket. And now you can pop on that fully clear arm onto the regular Sue, so you can have her kind of phasing into her invisible powered state. You can also get her into a more powered up state, really exerting herself and pushing those invisible powers from her arms into those shields. And now that you have modified those shoulder joints so that the arms are removable, she can now also borrow the lab coat from Moira McTaggart. So this is a pretty cool effect. You can have her invisible with the lab coat still visible. And now I'm starting to have a lot of fun having her tear off her lab coat and running into battle, kind of phasing into her invisible powered state. The Invisible Woman stands at just under 6¼ inches, and that's under 16 centimeters. Here she is with the rest of the Fantastic Four, with the villains from the Fantastic Four retro carded wave, She-Hulk and Doctor Doom, Super Skrull and the Skrull Army Builder, Spider-Man and Black Widow, some G.I. Joe Classified series, and some Star Wars Black series. I most definitely would not recommend you to get this as a standalone figure because everything is a complete reuse and there is zero paint on the figure. Hasbro should have at least sculpted the Fantastic Four logo on her chest. But with a couple of modifications, this figure would be a great companion piece to the regular Invisible Woman, with plenty of playability swapping options on the head and arms. Only get this figure if you plan on making the modifications and using it to complement the regular Invisible Woman. Please like and share this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, and subscribe to my channel for more toy reviews. Thanks for watching, take care and stay safe.